So if you work a modern desk job, your chair is actually quietly doing the exact same kind of biological damage to your body as like a mild smoking habit.
Yeah, it really is a silent trap.
Right. You drag yourself out of bed, you fold yourself into the driver's seat of a car, and you commute. And then you get to the office, sit at a desk for 8 or 9 hours, reverse that whole commute, and finally you just come home exhausted and sink into the couch.
Which is what everyone does, right?
Exactly. We
Yeah.
just treat this as the normal rhythm of being a modern professional. But it is essentially an evolutionary track. So today, we are doing a deep dive into extracting a highly practical, entirely free blueprint for breaking out of that exact cycle.
And it really is a trap that we've engineered for ourselves. The source material for our analysis today comes from this really fascinating presentation.
By a yoga and meditation teacher, right?
Right, who also practices as an energy healer. And what makes this source so compelling isn't just the stark warning about what this sedentary pipeline does to our physiology. It's the fact that the solutions offered require literally zero financial investment. They bypass the traditional, high-friction fitness industry entirely. We're looking at a system you can essentially start right from the side of your bed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when I was reading through Source's description of this trap, I kept thinking about this old classic car my neighbor used to have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He kept it locked in a garage for years, under a tarp. He was thinking he was preserving it by protecting it from the elements.
That makes sense in theory.
Right, but without actually turning the engine over, the fluids settle, the seals dry out, and the machine essentially just rots from the inside out. Leaving your body in a rigid, sedentary state all day feels like the biological equivalent of that.
That is a highly accurate mechanical analogy, specifically because of how human joints actually function. I mean, the human body doesn't have a pump for joint lubrication the way the heart pumps blood.
Wait, really? It relies purely on movement.
Exactly. The fluids that keep your joints healthy. The synovial fluid, it acts like a sponge. It only lubricates the joints when mechanical pressure, meaning physical movement, literally forces the fluid in and out of a cartilage.
Wow, so if you aren't moving, you're literally drying out your joints.
Yeah. And if we look at the broader historical context, the source points out, well, manual labor and outdoor jobs have become obsolete for the vast majority of the population. We used to achieve that mechanical compression just by, surviving.
Just going about our day.
Right. Now, society has engineered movement completely out of our daily environments, which means we have to consciously and systematically engineer it back in.
And the source material is completely uncompromising about the stakes here. I mean, it doesn't use the typical medical hedging like might lead to or increases the risk of.
No, not at all.
The presentation repeatedly leans on one very specific chilling word, and that word is guaranteed.
Yes, guaranteed.
Yeah.
It is a word that should force a complete recalibration of how we view our workdays. If you maintain that sitting-to-couch pipeline without any intervention, the source argues you are guaranteeing a shorter life. You are guaranteeing obesity, and you are guaranteeing chronic stress and anxiety.
It's framed as a mathematical certainty of biological neglect, not just a possibility.
Exactly. Because when you sit for hours, the enzymes responsible for breaking down fats in your bloodstream basically shut down. Your metabolic rate just plummets.
And your body stops processing insulin effectively, right?
Yes. The physiological decline isn't a chance outcome. It is the default programmed response to an absence of movement.
But the reality of trying to fix that decline introduces a massive psychological barrier for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because for someone who is genuinely depleted by the cognitive load of a workday, managing a boss, navigating traffic, dealing with endless emails, the standard advice to just go to the gym feels like an impossible hurdle.
So too much friction.
Exactly. The gym requires packing a bag, driving to a secondary location, navigating a crowded room of strangers, and paying a monthly fee. I mean, the friction is so high that it makes complete sense why a tired person simply defaults to the couch.
Which is precisely why the first phase of the solution offered in this presentation is to just abandon the concept of the gym entirely.
I love that part.
Right. The source explicitly warns that relying on a gym is a recipe for failure for the average person, simply because only a fraction of the population possesses the entrenched behavioral habits required to actually go consistently.
So what's the alternative?
Step one of this blueprint is entirely about establishing baseline movement through a totally friction-free approach, achieving a minimum of 10,000 steps a day using a free mobile tracking app.
Yeah, and I was looking at the practical hacks the source listed to accumulate those steps, and at first glance, some of them sound almost too trivial. Well, for instance, the instruction to stop sending someone else to get your lunch, or, ordering delivery to the lobby and instead actually fetching your own sandwich.
Right, it seems small.
But if you actually do the math on that simple behavioral shift over 250 workdays a year, you are completely changing your baseline caloric burn and joint mobility.
Yeah, it is really about changing your relationship with outsourced convenience. Every time you outsource a physical task, you are outsourcing your own mobility.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And that sandwich example ties directly into a much larger and frankly alarming observation the source makes regarding modern corporate culture.
The lunch break stats, right?
Yes, over 90% of people are legally entitled to a lunch break. They have the statutory right to step away from their workstations, yet a massive majority do not take it. We volunteer to stay in the trap.
Just eating while staring at spreadsheets.
Exactly.
So the source issues what I see as a non-negotiable mandate for you, the listener. You have to set a strict cutoff time, let's call it 1 p.m.
1 p.m. sharp.
Right. When that time hits, you don't just stop working. You must physically relocate. You take your 45 to 60 minutes, you leave the building, walk to a park or an outdoor plaza, and eat your meal outside.
And the mechanism behind why that outdoor relocation is so critical goes way beyond just accumulating steps.
What do you mean?
Well, when you are staring at a screen, your visual field is extremely narrow, which neurologically signals to your brain that you are focusing on a potential threat or stressor.
Oh, wow. So your brain thinks you're in danger.
Basically, yeah, it keeps you in a low-grade state of sympathetic nervous system arousal, fight or flight. But when you step outside and walk, you engage in what neurobiologists call optic flow.
Optic flow.
Right. Your eyes move laterally as objects pass by, which actually quiets the amygdala and reduces the anxiety that the source says is guaranteed by the desk job. You are using a physical mechanism to flush the cortisol right out of your bloodstream.
Okay, so walking clears the cortisol and it burns baseline calories, which is great, but just getting your steps in isn't going to fix a weak lower back or like atrophied shoulders.
No, it won't.
Right, at some point, walking isn't enough to fully rebuild the engine of that classic car. That requires muscular strength, which brings us to the next level of the blueprint, the big three home workout. And again, this completely bypasses the gym.
The elegance of the big three really lies in its rejection of isolation exercises. You don't need complex machinery targeting tiny individual muscle groups. The force argues you can trigger massive systemic physical transformation by focusing exclusively on three foundational areas using only the resistance of your own body weight.
Push-ups, squats, and crunches.
Exactly. You target the upper body with push-ups, you target the lower body with squats, and you target the core with crunches.
I mean, I understand the biomechanical logic of keeping it simple, but we really need to talk about the numbers presented in this source.
That's the number.
Yeah, because they seem completely detached from reality for a beginner. The speaker talks about doing squats in sets of 50, then 100, and eventually reaching up to 200 reps across 5 sets.
Which is a lot.
That is 1,000 squats. And for the core, it's 5 sets of 200 reps across different variations, totaling 5,000 crunches. If I'm someone who currently gets winded walking up a flight of stairs, how am I supposed to view those numbers as anything other than hyperbolic and totally overwhelming?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the source scales this. It is a completely rational reaction to feel overwhelmed by those figures. But context is crucial here. The speaker is not prescribing 1,000 squats for your first Tuesday.
Thank goodness.
Right. Those massive numbers represent a long-term vision meant to illustrate the hyper-adaptability of the human nervous system. When you first start doing bodyweight exercises, the initial gains you make aren't actually from growing new muscle tissue.
Really? What are they from?
They are neurological. Your brain is simply learning how to fire the existing muscle fibers more efficiently. The core, in particular, is an incredibly resilient muscle group that recovers and adapts to volume much faster than most people realize, so the actual starting instruction is heavily scaled down.
Right. The immediate instruction is to start incredibly small, literally right at the side of your bed. If we break down the upper body routine, the source suggests 5 different variations of push-ups.
Right.
You have standard shoulder width push-ups, wide push-ups, diamond push-ups with your hands together under your chest, pike push-ups with your hips elevated, and shorties, which are just small pulsing movements from a wide stance. I initially wondered, why not just do regular push-ups? But it's about mechanical levers, isn't it?
Precisely. By simply shifting the placement of your hands by a few inches, you completely change the geometric lever of your body.
That's a
Well, a wide stance shifts the resistance load heavily onto the pectoral muscles. Moving to a diamond stance forces the triceps to bear the brunt of your body weight. The pike variation radically alters the angle to target the deltoids and the shoulders.
So you're hitting everything without any equipment.
Exactly. You are recruiting entirely different dormant muscle fibers without ever needing to pick up a dumbbell. And the long-term goal is to eventually hit 20 of each variation for 100 total.
But for the beginner, the mandate is just to hit a minimum of 11 push-ups. And if you cannot perform 11 standard push-ups, the instruction is incredibly forgiving. You just drop to your knees. The rule is not to achieve perfect form on day one. The rule is simply do not stop.
That distinction is so vital. Dropping to your knees allows you to maintain time under tension.
Which is the whole point.
Right. If you just stop when it gets hard, you don't trigger the adaptation response in the muscle. By modifying the movement and finishing the set of 11, you push the muscle to near failure, which is the biological signal required for strength building. Over weeks, that minimum of 11 modified push-ups will naturally scale up to 20 standard ones.
And it is the exact same philosophy for the core. 5 variations of crunches. You've got regular alternate twisting crunches, leg lifts, side crunches, and reverse crunches. You just start small, maybe sets of 10 or 20.
And for the lower body, it is squats. But the scheduling of this is what makes it a genuinely airtight system.
Yeah, let's talk about the schedule.
Because we've all seen fitness routines that demand 2 hours a day, which ultimately fail because no one has that kind of disposable time. The source provides a very tight boundary for this.
Only 20 to 40 minutes, right?
Yes. The speaker mandates 20 to 40 minutes, no less than 20, to ensure you are actually creating a sufficient metabolic stimulus.
Yeah.
And absolutely no more than 40 to prevent burnout and respect your schedule.
And crucially, this high-intensity physical exertion is only required 3 to 4 days a week, so like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Which leaves a very obvious gap if you think about it.
Right, because habit formation relies on daily consistency. If you only train 3 days a week, what are you supposed to do on the alternate days to keep that behavioral chain unbroken?
On the alternate days, say Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, the routine drops the physical intensity entirely. The speaker instructs you to perform a simple 5-minute yoga routine consisting of just 3 fundamental postures.
And that's immediately followed by a 2-minute meditation. Right.
Exactly. And the key detail here is that you perform this entirely in your bed.
Doing it in bed completely removes the friction. You don't even have to put on shoes.
You really don't?
You are looking at a system where your rest days require 7 total minutes of mobility and mindfulness before your feet even hit the floor. And your active days require just 20 to 40 minutes of bodyweight training.
It's incredibly accessible.
It is. But even with a system this frictionless, relying purely on willpower is a losing game. When your muscles are burning on rep 8 of a push-up, or when it's raining and you don't want to take your lunch break outside, the mechanics of the workout aren't enough to keep you going. You need a deeper psychological anchor.
You need a reason that transcends vanity or, just fitting into a certain size of clothing.
So what does this all mean? How do we frame that anchor?
Well, the source transitions from the physical mechanics to the philosophical why, offering a deeply poignant perspective on the trajectory of a human life. The speaker acknowledges that right now, your life might feel stagnant.
You might be exhausted by the commute or uninspired by the desk job.
Exactly, feeling like you are in a persistent down phase. But the core assertion is that the down phase will inevitably lift.
And that introduces what I call the tragedy of bad timing. Think of this routine as an investment portfolio for your future life experiences.
I like that.
Because when you finally reach that subsequent peak, when you achieve financial stability, or you finally have the free time you've been working decades for, the absolute worst-case scenario is looking back with bitter regret because you sacrificed your physical capacity while waiting for things to improve.
Exactly. Imagine finally reaching a state of freedom, only to realize the vehicle you need to experience it. Your body is broken down in the garage. The speaker uses very specific, emotionally resonant scenarios to visualize this.
Those scenarios are incredibly motivating. Imagine you are in your 50s and you unexpectedly meet the absolute love of your life, your true soulmate.
Yeah.
You want to possess the physical vitality to travel with them,
Mhm.
to hike up a hill, to watch a sunset, to participate fully in that relationship without being limited by joint pain or a weak cardiovascular system. Or imagine a new grandchild being born into your family.
If you lack the baseline mobility to simply get down on the floor to play with a toddler, or if picking them up poses a serious risk to your lumbar spine, you are missing out on the fundamental joys of the human experience.
It's heartbreaking to think about.
It is. Or perhaps you meet a vibrant new friend who invites you to try a completely new activity. Sailing, dancing, or just a sport you never considered in your youth. The sedentary trap robs you of the ability to say yes to those spontaneous invitations.
You want to be biologically prepared for the good things when they arrive. You don't want to finally discover the perfect hobby or meet the perfect companion, only to have to decline because your knees are shot from 2 decades of sitting rigid in an office chair.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of the source material. The speaker makes a definitive foundational claim here. Health is your single biggest asset.
Not your bank account.
Right, it is not your investment portfolio, it is not your property, and it is not your job title. It is your health, because your physical capacity dictates the boundaries of your psychology. The mind and the body are not separate entities.
So if your body is weak, your mind follows.
Exactly. If your body is weak and lethargic, your neurochemistry reflects that. But when you build physical resilience, you create a positive feedback loop. It dictates your daily energy levels, your capacity to handle stress, and your baseline positivity. Overcoming the trap of the 21st century is not merely about disease avoidance. It is an active optimization of your capacity for joy.
When you establish physical strength, you are simultaneously building mental fortitude. It really is such an empowering framework.
It really is.
The major takeaway from all of this is that taking control of your biggest asset does not require permission, and it does not require capital. It is entirely in your own hands. You bypass the friction of the gym, you download a free step counter, and make a non-negotiable commitment to 10,000 steps.
And you reclaim that lunch break.
Yes, you reclaim your legal right to a lunch break, setting a strict 1 p.m. boundary to step outside and let the optic flow reset your nervous system. And you dedicate just 20 to 40 minutes a few days a week to a bedside routine of push-ups, squats, and crunches, allowing the natural adaptability of your body to scale those numbers up over time.
Before we wrap up, consider this one final thought. The source makes it abundantly clear that our modern society is perfectly, almost invisibly engineered to keep us seated. So look around your immediate environment right now, your office, your living room, your kitchen. How can you consciously re-engineer that space today to subtly, automatically force yourself into motion?
That's a great question to leave off on. Take care of your biggest asset. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.